This is the Voice of Bold Business Radio, and I am your host, Jessica Duell of Red Direction. You're listening to Program 33, Unexpected and Adaptable. The skill of responsiveness is looking past experiences and data and deciding how to adjust and refine future results. The skill of adaptiveness is different. It's what we do when we're faced with a situation that requires an immediate action and changing course quickly. We take in the situation and then we act. Action is the core. We act and then we can plan, a responsiveness piece. The thing is, when we find ourselves needing to act, do we have enough preparation, knowledge, and understanding to act well and with the best impact that we're looking for? The more of those things we have, preparation, knowledge, and understanding, the easier it is to adapt in the moment. One time, I was invited to talk in front of a group of businesswomen. When I got there were businesswomen, but the majority of people were not able to immediately use what I had to share. I was in front of the wrong audience. So I took all of the preparation I had done and I adapted. I left out stats. I stuck in different information in places to better suit the group. I'm prepared with the information that I had, which allowed me to make changes quickly once I understood there was a gap between what I was prepared to share and what my audience was ready to receive. I used it to my advantage, that planning. That planning, by seeing what was actually in place in front of me in that moment in time, allowed me to make a different choice, the correct choice, and a strong choice. I had a good time, and the group as a whole did find the information useful and helpful, and went home happy. Responsiveness directly correlates to long-term strategy and success. Adaptiveness is about being present in the moment and adjusting to what is. When we come back, I'll introduce you to today's Leaders Discuss panel, and they will answer the question, how do you prepare for unexpected problems out of your control, and how do you plan to be adaptable?
Welcome to the Voice of Bold Business, the show that provides everything smart leaders need to evaluate situations, build relationships, and create solutions. Jessica Duell candidly talks about the skills necessary to build tenacity and do more with less. And now, here's Jessica.
Thanks for joining us here for Program 33, Unexpected and Adaptable. Voice of Bold Business Radio is proud to welcome two super smart women that I admire and I look up to, and I always learn from both of them. First, we have Carmen Roja. Carmen is a marketing nerd who loves data and analytics. She has been in marketing for more than 12 years, and she never wants to do anything else for a living. She's a military wife, a mother of 2 children, and she has 2 awesome dogs. Also with us is Eva, and I always shorten her name to Eva, so I don't really have to say her last name, but I'm going to try today just for her. Oh, goodness. I've done this. And I was even practicing before, but now I gave myself stage fright and I can't do it. Eva, how do you say your last name?
Ignatovic.
Ignatovic. There we go. Okay, so Eva is a marketing strategist and a business development expert. She spent the last 17 years helping business owners manage their marketing, advertising, and strategy, as well as social media. Her strength is bridging the gap between collecting data and connecting it to people. Welcome, Carmen and Eva.
Yay, thank you.
I'm really glad to be here. And I'm extremely happy to meet Carmen because I've heard so much about her, but never had a chance to talk to her. So this is a really exceptional opportunity.
Yay.
Oh, thank you.
So this Leaders Discuss panel question is, how do you prepare for unexpected problems out of your control and plan to be adaptable? Take it away, Carmen.
Well, first, thank you so much for having me back on your show. This is one of my favorite things to do. And kudos to you for 33 shows.
Yeah, isn't this great?
Sweet. I fist bump, virtual fist bump. Good job. And it's a pleasure to be here with you also, Eva. Looking forward to this quite a bit. It's a tough question to answer because you really can't, obviously, by definition, be prepared for those things that happen that are unexpected and unplanned for. Because if you did, then they wouldn't be unexpected. Eva and I were talking about the joys of working in the marketing industry and our lovely long hours. And often it's because little is predictable. And as much as she and I both have a knack and love for data and analytics, that doesn't make it any more predictable. It just means we can see it when it happens. I think for me, both professionally for my clients and then me as a business owner and even as a parent and a spouse and a wife, is to just take things in small bites and move forward in small steps. It is so much easier to redirect a rowboat than it is to redirect an aircraft carrier. So once you find that you are off track and all you've got is, a single engine rowboat that you have to maneuver, it's much easier to maneuver that than it is when you have to call for congressional clearance to change direction. So that's my Navy wife analogy. I definitely think, when we start talking about marketing and data and processes, we encourage our clients to do small batches. And the reason for that is because if you set up a month's worth of social media at once, something unexpected is going to happen. I can guarantee you. The unexpected happens. So when you do it in smaller bites, a week's worth, a few days worth, now when something unexpected happens, you can change course much, much easier than if you had to take down everything you had planned to do for that entire period of time. So that's my tip or solution, I guess. Answer to the question is to move in smaller steps.
Okay, Eva, how would you answer that?
In business, as in life, actually you can't predict anything. We can pretend and we can plan and we can learn from experience, but basically after every corner you can get something unexpected. And the best way is to actually accept that something will always go wrong. How I find that, how I try to overcome and prepare is if you already know a project that you work on, then you, at least with an experience that I have, I can give a sort of fair assessment where can a problem occur, if it occurs. So we can at least prepare for something that might happen at a certain point of a project. Also, it's something that I always like to say, but we always pay somehow, whether through time or money, we always have to pay a price. And if you want to save time, you need to spend some money. And if you want to save some money, you need to spend some time. Usually on projects with no budgets or very low budgets, you know right away that certain problems will occur just around the corner as soon as you go there. It's better to give estimations that are more realistic and not to be, people when they start doing new things and when they move into projects, they're very enthusiastic. They are so full of energy. They think that no one and nothing can stop them. And then internet crashes, like connection is bad. To be honest, internet can crash right now as we speak, and one of us will just disappear from the screen. There's nothing that we can do at that moment. So it's better to prepare by making some kind of at least most common bumps on the road. It's not a prediction, it's learning from the experience. And that's simply that. To be honest, I like to monitor time. How much time I spend on certain segments of work. Because once you do that, you can calculate the optimal and then simply add 20 or 30% on that and say this can be our buffer zone.
It cracks me up, but it's also very real because I can't think of two better people to walk through this and think about this whole concept of it doesn't matter what action we take, we cannot predict all of the future outcomes and have a contingency plan for everything. But when we cover our bases and we know what our intention is and we have an understanding of where we're going, it makes it more realistic to go, okay, we can build this buffer zone. So let's talk about this concept that little is predictable. Some people have this illusion that this concept of control out there. And what do you have to say about that?
Sorry, go ahead, Angel. Carmen, go ahead.
We all go through kind of personal and professional stages where we feel like we have control, or we feel like we can exert our influence and the world dances to the way we want it to. It doesn't usually last very long. Usually you get smacked in the face with reality that, in fact, you do not have control. And I think as a younger person, I kind of went through that. I would probably say what really shook me from that illusion was having children, because there's no control over that. Absolutely none. From literally start to wherever you are, there's so lack of control over that. It forces you to kind of learn to ride with it and to just say, you know what? It is what it is, and we're just going to keep right on rolling. With my kids in particular, especially my son, who likes the idea of control and rules and things like that, and everything should work. Mom, we should have dinner at this time because that's what time we have dinner. That doesn't always happen that way. If I have to teach him to be flexible, then I have to be flexible myself, and I have to model that flexibility. So I've had to kind of shed this illusion of control. And also being a military spouse, I told people a long time ago, if the military had wanted you to have a family, they would have issued you one. So there's
truth to that.
Very much truth to that. When you move, how long you'll stay there, how much money you'll get, all of that kind of stuff is so beyond your control. And at times it is infuriating and seems unfair and like they're singling you out, and it can just literally drive you batty. But the sooner you realize that you never were in control, the sooner you're able to just kind of say, all right, let's go, and move on to the next thing.
Did you want to add something, Eva?
Usually, I think about one sentence. I may stumble, but I won't give up. When you have a purpose, when you know your goal, when you know where you're going, you don't know the road, but you know that you want to be at the point B and not at the point D. You know, you don't know the road, but you're moving there. So, of course, along that road, you will stumble how many times, you know, but the important stuff is you don't give up because you're certain that you are on the right path. And as long as you're making a progress, you're actually on the right path, doing the right thing. When it comes, you know, to those unexpected things, and if anyone is controlling it or not controlling it, or is it just a course of nature, it's just really, really most important thing is to stay on that path. Even if you have to, I don't know, make a U-turn and go back like 200 meters and then find a different road, but you'll still move into point B because that's where you want to be.
What can we actually control? We can really only control ourselves. We can control how we think. We can control what we eat. We can control when we sleep. We can control who we hang out with. All of those choices are ours to make. As soon as we're interacting with somebody else, any one of those interactions becomes somewhat unpredictable because we cannot control those things for anybody else. And when we try to, when you think of the super dads and the super moms, the ones who are the primary caregivers and the breadwinners at the same time, there's a cost there. And I know that was one of the things that, Eva, that you had mentioned, that there's a cost to everything that we do, and understanding what that cost is going in will allow what that success looks like in terms of control. Because what I've noticed, the people that want to do it all, that are trying to control everything, have way less success, a lot higher stress, and usually a lower overall quality of life. And it shows up in the relationships that they surround themselves with, and maybe even in their health. I was talking about responsiveness, and to me, responsiveness is long-term versus adaptiveness is being in the moment. So what are your top tips for being adaptive, being able to adapt to a changing situation in the moment?
If you want to adapt, you need to be flexible. And Carmen already mentioned that, you know, that flexibility is a very important quality. And to adapt fast, you also need to be able to assess situation fast, and not just do it fast, but to make an optimal assessment. Because every kind of adaptation or iteration or change actually is a microscopical change of plans, microscopical problem solving or idea development, because you either have to expand or you have to subtract something in order for something else to work. I know that this might sound cliche, maybe it's obvious to some people, but I can tell you this, a lot of people, when they hit the roadblock, they don't think with their cool heads. And it's not the emotion of rage or, okay, I'm pissed, because this happened. It's that they're in a panic because they hit the roadblock and they absolutely start to panic and just run in circles. Instead, they should stop. They should pause, even for 5 minutes. I have to say that many times I learned that lesson a long time ago, really long time ago. That pause of 5 minutes can give so much insight. Like, sit, breathe, try to define what really happened, and let's see how can we move on, how can we solve that problem or an issue. Or maybe it's not a problem at all. It's maybe just a real bump that after 5 minutes you'll just say, okay, let's just hop over it. It's not a big deal. And I learned that lesson because I worked in a firm where everything was drama. Everything was drama. And because of that, a lot of bad things, a lot of bad decisions were made, and human interaction was also very poor because they didn't want to take 5 minutes to sit and cool their hands and say, okay, let's see, what can we do next? Mm-hmm. So I think that's the best tip for me always. Like, just be cool. Just be cool and think. Use your brain. You have brain for a reason.
Some amazing answers. I was just scrolling through my Facebook page the other day and someone had a meme about there's a difference between a response and a reaction. Mm-hmm. And which is it that you're going to do to whatever situations that you might be faced with. Today, I had to make a decision about whether I was going to react to something or whether I was going to respond to something. Hopefully, we made the right choice in responding to this particular situation. And back to kind of the original question about adaptation, I think one of the things that has helped me the most is to literally have a faith, not necessarily religious faith, that too, but also just faith in yourself and faith in your ideas and faith that you are on the right path, that things will eventually work out. This decision is important, but it's going to work out the way it's supposed to work out. So just take some of that pressure off yourself. The sky is falling if I don't make the right decision, and just believe that there is a plan for you. This is part of the plan. The plan is not always a straight line. One of the things that people get hung up on is that they don't want to make the choice. Sometimes there are decisions and situations that come up that need a quick response. And while I agree with Eva in taking a second and breathing and considering your options and making a good reaction to it, don't let that second become a lifetime where you never make a decision, because not to decide is to decide that you're just not going to deal with the whole situation. And I think what we have to do, whether as business owners or individuals, moms, parents, wives, whatever, there's a concept called pivot or persevere. You either keep one foot planted and make a turn, which is a pivot, or you persevere and you just put your head down and you keep moving forward in the same direction. That's the choice. When we have these situations, that's the choice. Either you change course or you stay going forward. Once you filter out all the other noise, that's the choice. Either you're going to change course or you're going to continue to move forward. And so I think once people kind of boil down to that, then they can find that the adaptations that they're making actually do put them in better places.
Okay, what you guys both just said reminded me of a story. And it seems silly. I think it illustrates the point. This is, in my life, I am really good at a lot of things. One of the things I'm not very good at is taking vitamins. not only is taking vitamins hard for me, in our house, the quality of the vitamins and where they come from and what is the source and all this other stuff has already been thankfully taken care of for me, because I can't do that part. I would just take whatever I needed to take that I saw on the commercial and I would be good. That's not how research in this house works. So all the research has been done, and I've got this. I don't just take a multivitamin every day. I've got an entire tray vitamins that I have to take, okay? And so here I am. I'm like, I am high energy. I can easily burn the candle at both ends, but I need to be replenished. I'm apparently missing a few things, and I'm going to take these vitamins. So I start taking vitamins, stuff from every single bottle that's on this tray in the morning. I'm sitting at dinner, and we're talking about this, and Ryan's asking me, how is your vitamin taking going? And I told him, and he looks at me and he goes, you're taking all those vitamins at the same time once a day? Well, if we look at the bottles, they're supposed to be here and here and here and here. And I just looked at him and I said, I just want to take the vitamins. I would like to have that habit. Please quit making it complicated. This tray could be all the people in your life. This tray could be all the problems you face at work. It could be all of the current projects you're working on. Mine just happens to be vitamins right now. And so this concept of response versus react, I had a visceral come out of me. And Ryan didn't know where his wife went. So I'm like, what am I going to do? So finally I said, I recognized I'd turned into this gremlin. And I said, okay, I got to just think about this. I can't make any decision right now. I'm having a hard enough time with these vitamins, and I got to come back later. To my credit, I did. I said, you make a really good point. And here's my really good point to that. Sure, everything has to be taken in its own time. We want my body to do everything that it needs to do with these vitamins, but I can barely remember to take them at all, let alone throughout the entire day. So I'm going to need some more help from you. And what did we do? We sat down and we problem solved. Here's what it is. This is what it looks like. This is when you can realistically take all of these things and blah, 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 blah. And so now I take vitamins 3 times a day, which is still way too many in my opinion, but at least it's not every hour throughout the day for a variety of things. So it's a matter of being able to go, I'm going to have a reaction to something. And then being able to take that space and recognize I'm either in a reaction I need to stop, or I'm going to react, so I better stop now, and walking away. And what I have found for me personally, and I'm curious for you guys, is in a situation where I have to adapt, if it catches me out of left field, like I don't have vitamins on the brain, I'm not thinking about them, they're just kind of becoming part of this habit. And all of a sudden I found out all these other requirements I'm missing out on and missing the benefits of. And I freaked out. Whereas now that I had stopped and thought about it, if something else comes out of left field and there's more requirements, I have more context, I have more structure, I have more connection to what this topic is. And I'm going to react differently next time because I have more experience with it.
Like 99% of events in our lives is not going to be a life-changing event, so like in a second, So if we don't decide like this second, this moment, this very second, I don't know, sun will never rise again. A step back. If a person is a leader, if a person is truly committed, if a person knows why he or she is doing what they're doing, step back can only help them. Mm-hmm. And if a step back pulls them away from a reaction, that for me means that they were not supposed to be in that place at all. Anyway, for me, stepping back is just a tactic to get your brain out of that vicious circle and to start thinking in a more logical way. Because people are emotional, so no matter what we do with emotions. Right. But if you take a breath and move on and say, okay, here and here, as Carmen said, you can go this way or you can charge forward, but at least make that decision with a sane mind and not out of...
And recognize our first reaction might be panic. And that's actually a reality of if we're supposed to have an answer and all of a sudden we find ourselves in a situation where we don't have the answer and we are not prepared, we have nothing to draw on, and we're searching, that's when our seconds.
I have to say one thing I've learned like 15 years ago when people ask me, so what should we do now? And I said, I don't know. I need to think. Give me 2 minutes. Give me 5 minutes. I'm not going to give you an answer now. I've learned how important and how not terrifying is to say, no, I don't know.
It takes maturity to be able to recognize when you need that step back and when you need that moment to just pause for a second. This morning, for example, I got an email from a client. I thought we were all in the clear, and I'm like, oh, this is gorgeous. She's going to love this. And she came back and was just like, okay, wait a second. And that all these changes that we never discussed before, I'm checking my contract going, what the heck? This is not what we talked about. This is outside of the scope of what we're doing. And I was like really feeling like my blood pressure rise and getting really ticked off. I went, I better not respond to her email right now. And I didn't respond to it literally for hours because there is no way. And email is kind of one of those funky things that it's really hard to get people's intentions just by reading the words. But I've often found that when I email angry, my intention does come across, even if it's the same words that I would otherwise use. So I had to wait till I had my coffee, till I'd done a few other things and kind of just let the blood pressure come back down to normal before I responded to her. And, and then I came up with a very professional way to say, these are great ideas. Let's talk about this after we've had a chance to revisit some of our original thoughts and see how this fits with the direction that we're going. So when are you available to talk about this? And just, and put the ball back in her court to just say, look, lady, it's not going to happen that way.
You bring up a really good point about being intentional, Carmen, and the concept of even our emotions are playing a role whether we recognize it or not. And I think that's what I've learned about myself too, is that there are some people who they take an action and then it all falls together. And I do that pretty well. There are some people who really have to think. They really have to think and they have to see this really big picture before they take any action. And for those of us that like to take action, they're like turtles. Or slugs. Not that the turtles or slugs are bad. We're talking about the speed of these creatures. That's all. And figuring that stuff out is really important. And other people can't move forward unless they have a checklist. They can't have a checklist. So when we're thinking about we're going to go way high level, and I'm going to go back to the concept of being able to adjust in a responsive fashion, that's like moving a big boat. That's moving a lot of different things at once. And when we're holding all of those things and we're making a big plan, that ability to be responsive and make larger course corrections that we can bring everybody along with us, that's a whole other skill. People misunderstand that. And there's a time for the really big thinking, but then there's the time, like what Carmen, you were just talking about, of, can I even answer this right now? Somebody's demanding from me. Can I even give that to them? Do I want to? What do I think about that? And I think you're both very onto something when you say the longer we're doing something, the shorter those pauses get. We're in a place where everything has to be fast and everything has to be immediate. So how do you counteract the immediacy of the requirement of you got to have an answer, you got to do it right now, it's got to be yesterday, when we're all saying part of being adaptable is taking a space?
It's more important to be correct and to give the right response than it is to give the first response or the fast response. I think it was around the time that smartphones first came out, and it was like when you got an email on your phone, you had to respond to it. It was like, if that little blinking light is going off, I have to get in there, I have to read it, I have to respond to it. Otherwise, like Eva said, the sun will not rise tomorrow, or my boss will get mad, or whatever this is going to somehow cause death and destruction if I do not answer it right away. And I've really had to just learn that, no, it's really not that deep. It's really not that serious. And the ability to kind of put some space in between, particularly myself and my smartphone, but, just space in more of a philosophical sense, around myself, that I have to, it's more important for me to give the right response than it is to give the first response. And if my right response is right, then they'll wait. they will appreciate that this was the right response. If I give a fast response and it's wrong, then that doesn't help anybody out. And everybody loses, and it ends up falling back at me, and it's just a mess. My son plays chess, and one of the things we've had to really teach him how to do is to slow down. He's like, oh, but I know the move. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't know the third move that's going to happen. So slow down and really think about it. And when he plays slower, he plays great. When he plays fast, it's not so great. That kind of thinking has really helped me, and I think people need to do that more often.
Thinking ahead more than just the next step. And that's where a longer term plan is required. If we don't know our milestones, we don't know what our 2 steps ahead might look like when we say or do something in this moment.
I'll give an example from social media. I'm not going to call names, but we have all been witness to brand blunders online when they made some mistake. And of course, users on Twitter usually are, simply killing them with comments and complaints. And then they have 2 responses. One is, let's cover ourselves with blanket, and we don't know that it exists. Totally. Let's pretend. Majority goes to the other side. And they are so fast in responding that they usually make another blunder because they do not think how to do it properly.
And they have not planned ahead because everybody's going to make a mistake.
Yes. They thought that they are infallible, that they cannot make a mistake, and that something like that will never happen to them, and therefore they are not prepared. They don't know how to respond, and therefore all their reactions are completely wrong, and they're just making more and more and more damage. The thing with the actual planning and making some of future situation, it's what Carmen said. In chess, you know the first move, but you should know at least 3 of potential moves after, because you're not playing with yourself. In business, in life, we're not playing with ourselves. We're playing with other players. And we are not mind readers. At least cover your basics. Cover what you can vouch for, what you can be certain of.
Let's not talk about like a whole business plan, but let's talk about, well, you guys are both in marketing. Let's talk about a marketing plan. From a time investment, from a thinking investment, from an exploration element of things. How do you build a plan? And what do you think is the most important element or the most important skill that is used in building this plan?
It really depends on kind of what you're trying to do and what your goals are. But I think that's obviously the first step, is having a clearly defined what is your goal. I belong to a lot of Facebook groups, and there's nothing irritates me more than people who will say, I'm not getting any support. And I'm like, okay, what is the support you're asking for? Are you asking for sales? Are you asking for followers? Are you asking for signups? What are you asking for? And they're like, well, I don't know. I just want people to, okay, well, how do you quantify that? I mean, you need to have a very clearly defined goal. I want likes. I want followers. I want sales. I want signups, video watches, whatever it is. Have a goal in mind. And because I'm a numbers gal, I tend to make that dollar related. How many of these do you need to meet your sales goal or your profitability index that you're trying to reach? And then just kind of working backwards from there. I think the mistake that people make is to go the other way around. They'll say half the world is on Facebook now, I think, or something like 1 out of every 3 people have a Facebook page or something ridiculous like that. So then they'll say, okay, but I need to be on Facebook because everybody's there. And it's like, yeah, but are they there in the mind space that they're going to listen to you, or are they there because they want to watch videos of cats playing pianos? Is that really where you want to be placing your interest and your time? Perhaps there are other options. Being very specific about what your goal is and then attaching to those things that are like aligned is a critical step in developing a marketing plan or any plan.
Okay. And what's the most important skill that must be employed when building a plan?
If you're in business, there are some people out there that I don't know how they do it, and it's just not a part of my DNA to be like all philosophical and oh, I'm going to connect and my customers will come to me because I'm exuding such confidence in my aura, whatever. Those are not my ideal customers.
I know,
but you know those people.
Yeah, I know those people. Oh God.
Yeah. I can't do that. No. And that's not me. And I can't take those people on as clients because we will fight every day.
It's a little bit of a magic box, isn't it? It's like, ooh, here I am, and this is what I want. And there's this magic box of confidence and exudement.
When they come and they say, and I'm a Taurus or a Virgo, and I say,
oh, okay.
Yes. So why? What's the significant? Where's the significance in that in your horoscope sign? Well, it's my personality, and that's how I met a person who actually does everything by horoscope. Everything, the whole life, the whole career, everything has been mapped.
I know people like that too.
Following horoscope.
Like down to the time of day. No, this hour, I'm not going to get the result I want, so I'm going to wait until later this afternoon. Not to say there's no truth to that, because it works well for those people because they fully embraced it and they figured out what it means for them. And I think that's it. So Carmen, what you said really matters for you is this concept of this critical thinking piece or this research piece is what I really, as being the skill to bring to the table to make useful plans that can be followed.
If you're not in business to make money, I don't know what you're doing. I mean, whether you're a nonprofit or, I'm sorry?
It's a hobby. Sorry to interrupt. Usually I say to my clients, unless you're earning money, you're having a hobby and not a business.
It's a hobby. It's a pastime, a distraction. But if you're running a business, the goal is to make money, to turn a profit. And profit is number driven. There's costs and there's revenue. When your revenue exceeds your cost, you have profit. It's very, very simple. So when you are, looking at your marketing plan, then you have to be driving towards profitability. Your marketing is a cost. It needs to derive some revenue. How much can you do to get the revenue you want? People tend to get overwhelmed at times, and I think people tend to get kind of shell-shocked by that, like, oh my God, they're talking numbers. I can't keep up my brain. But you have to force yourself to go through those thought processes of what will make me profitable. And I do it down to pretty much the day. I could tell you almost per hour how much my company has to make in order for us to achieve the goals that we want to achieve. Do we always meet it? No. But I know what the goal is, and I can recognize it when we're off so that it's not a surprise at the end of the week or the month or the pay period or whatever. Some of the unexpected, you could do a better job of forecasting if you planned better in the beginning.
All right, Eva, how about you? How do you build a plan, and what skill is the most important that you're bringing to the table for the plans that you make?
First of all, I think that once you start a project, once you start building something, you want to eliminate the noise. I think that people simply are overwhelmed with noise of all kinds of types. Like one example is a bunch of well-meaning advice from all kinds of people, friends, families, bridesmaids. Oh, my sister, she knows this. And, oh, my baby picked this color, and I think this is really going to be good for a logo. Really? Seriously? No? Downsize the noise and to really focus and create some kind of solid base. I like to say that the most dangerous phrase is no longer everybody, we've always done it this way before. The most dangerous phrase is because others are doing it that way. People are rushing into business trying to copy models and projects and processes from other companies or other brands, and it simply won't work because you are not Nike, you are not Apple, you're not Microsoft, you are something completely different. And I think that people really need to be aware to set that base without noise. And after that, to set the actual definition of what that company or firm or brand or business, whatever the project is, or simply a product, is going to do. What is the purpose? Other than, of course, income, other than getting money. What is the purpose? To whom does it serve?
And I would even go one step further. And how is it different? So the purpose is the difference. The purpose is
that's something that I will just add to those things that Carmen already said, because she was right. There are so many important steps, so many important qualities that it's a complex world out there in business. If you do things right at the beginning, your path will be much easier later.
Mm-hmm. And what's the skill?
If you ask me, and I know that you're not going to like maybe my answer, logic.
Yeah. All right. Logic. I'm writing this down.
Yeah, I like that one. Logic
and critical thinking, and analysis. Logic and analysis. They are a big part of so much of what we do, and it actually is what lays the groundwork for having a plan that people can follow, that is reasonable, that anybody in an organization can be told what their part is and they can see their contribution. So yeah, unless that thoughtfulness around the logic and the analysis is done up front, we don't know if we're on track or not. We don't know if our people are on track or not. We don't know how to guide them along the way. And we sure don't know how to react in the moment, because the goal of planning is not to have to fight fires every day, but when they come up, that we're prepared to automatically respond to them a little bit easier and quicker, creating a habit of only responding and only reacting all the time.
If you're not a logical person, like I know Eva and I are
I'm the odd man out here. I'm the odd woman out.
There's kind of a spectrum of being logic. And I think I would probably be fair to say that Eva and I are probably on the more extreme end of being logical. If you know yourself well enough to know that you are not logical, either do one of two things. Hire somebody who is, like Eva or I, or be willing to take your hits, take your lumps. If you recognize in yourself that you are not logical and that you are that spiritual fairy being that just thinks everything in the world works because you wave your magic wand, stick to that. Believe that. Just get somebody else on your team that sees things in a little more black and white.
Really glad that you said that, Carmen. Bringing it out. Recognize where we are at, what our skills actually are, so that we're either going for the ride or we're doing some planning, or somewhere in the middle. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I want this conversation to go on, and we have reached the end of this program, Carmen and Eva, and I can't believe it. So just to remind everybody, this is the Voice of Bold Business, and this is program 33. Wow, 33. Unexpected and adaptable. And you can go visit voiceofboldbusiness.com/P33, or search the site for Unexpected and Adaptable to find the program notes that go along with all of this information. I'll write up the tips, and I'll write up the skills, and I'll write up everything that Eva and Carmen were sharing with us today for your reference. And don't forget, if you like this show and you are enjoying Voice of Bold Business, wherever you are listening to us, make sure you're rating our episodes. Make sure you're subscribing so that you can automatically be notified every Tuesday and every Friday when new shows are coming out. So thank you so much for listening. And being a leader today is hard, but it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be tiring and hard. It can just be part of the journey. So what does it mean to be a leader today for you? And as a leader, how are you handling the unexpected and planning to be adaptable?
Subscribe at thevoiceofboldbusiness.com and get more information, program notes, and past episodes. Bold leaders approach each situation and focus on action to achieve a higher level of leadership. Jessica Duell, your business advocate, is the host of the Voice of Bold Business Radio. Thank you for joining us.